that's what even I want to continue with, and maybe I will let Isaac Adongo speak to it briefly, and I'll come to you because we don't have much time for today's program. Isaac, the president was very categorical. Before he spoke, I know that the Ochehene also expressed disappointment, but some have said that, like Indum expressed concern on Facebook that I monitored, that he has a cabinet memo that confirms a deliberate effort to collapse his bank. Should we take the president serious when he says it is fake news, or for you as an MP where you sit, following issues and policies that have been implemented, there is something we can speak to?
Well, it's very clear. This is not 2017. This is 2024, and events have panned out that give credence to the things that were mentioned in the AGYAPADE document. So what is he denying? Is it not the case that cabinet, through the Minister for Finance, approved the collapse of the financial institutions? You cannot, no regulator can collapse a bank without the executive being prepared to bear the fiscal cost of it.
But they have blamed that on John Mahaman's administration failure to implement recommendations by the Bank of Ghana to ensure that the rot, as they want to put it, would not happen.
That is the mark of a leader. A leader looks at a country that is struggling to create sustainable jobs and say that yes, there are problems that have occasioned certain activities of the financial sector. The way to go across the world is not to collapse the institutions, but to provide the type of oversight and solutions that strengthen them in order for them to continue to play the role that they play. You don't collapse them. Let me cite the example of the Dutch Bank. The Deutsche Bank would have been gone 5, almost 10, 20 years ago if they had followed the model that Akufo-Addo followed. But we went to Dutch Bank later to borrow from them. The financial institutions in America, under the subprime mortgages challenges that they had, were not collapsed. The state undertook to support them. And at the time, we knew that 9 billion Ghana cedis could solve the problem and still have the banks survive, and would have continued to employ our people and provide the kind of financial intermediation that our business community need to raise money. What they did was to throw 30 billion at a 9 billion problem and kill them. Are you now surprised that at the point that the government itself needed to borrow money, there were no financial institutions for them to borrow from? Are you now surprised that the little funds that are available, the government was the biggest borrower, such that individual businessmen could not raise money? When the government is already paying about 35% interest on its loans, how can the private sector be able to compete? Okay, it means that for a private sector entity to borrow, he will need about 50%. I don't know the type of genuine business that can give you a return to cover 50% interest and still leave something for you to run your business. So the leadership that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama provided was first to go in there and assess the impact of the problem. So we did an asset quality review. Okay, the asset quality review came out with some results. Then in 2016, His Excellency decided that we needed to go and validate the report and be certain about the numbers, and the report was validated. When we validated the asset quality review, it became clear that we needed an amount of about 9 million to solve the 9 billion to solve the problem. When we set out a roadmap, what we said was that all banks have their peculiar niches, and it's not every bank that will need 1 billion as working capital. Some will need smaller money. So we set a base of 230 million Ghana cedis for every bank to recapitalize over a 3-year period. But in addition to that, we set up another leg which was going to allow the central bank to work with individual banks to assess the level of risk that they carry on their balance sheet and the appropriate capital that they need to match those risks. So it was possible for you to have a bank that was okay with just 230 million. It was possible when you use the internal capital adequacy assessment program that we had put in to realize that a bigger bank, say Ghana Commercial Bank, may need more than 230 million. So we work with them to beef up the capital, so that every bank will bring money adequate enough to meet the risk that they carry. But you cannot have a one-fit-all, that everybody should bring 400 million. Even if I need just about 100 million to work, I have to bring 400 million. And you don't even give me enough time to raise those money. You decide that you should bring the money within 1 year. You know, and within that 1 year, you kept making pronouncements that scared away people who wanted to give the banks the money. Then you went downstream and realized that the banks could raise the money from the securities regulated entities, the fund management companies. You issued a letter collapsing those banks, those security companies. So in the end, they couldn't find anywhere to raise the money. So precisely what AGYAPADE wanted to do was to put them where you have the excuse to collapse them. And that's what happened. So if you now say that AGYAPADE is false, have you to collapse the banks? Didn't AGYAPADE even way back in 2017 say that you were targeting bigger banks owned by Ghanaians to collapse? Where is Dr. Indum's bank now? Where is Dr. Dufour's bank? Where is Nyinaku's bank? Where is UT bank? You know,
I think Seidu Agongo's bank was also affected.
And these were Ghanaian banks. Some of them are specifically mentioned in the AGYAPADE. And the AGYAPADE is not uttered today. It was uttered way back before you came into power.
But Joyce, I see some effort. I've seen Gabby's post, for example, and so you'd think that there is some deliberate effort to debunk this document that is already in the public domain and many Ghanaians are interested in.
You know, I put up a tweet yesterday and I said that maybe the reason why these very lame denials are coming up now is because Ghanaians are currently drawing parallels between what is in that document and of course what is actually playing out dramatically in our system. We can see what is going on. The SNIT banks and all of those, the SNIT hotels in particular, for example. What were you expecting? I mean, look, there is another subject that I think that we probably have not highlighted enough, and I think that every Ghanaian will be interested in, especially people who live here in the Upper East region. Our current public debt is at 742 billion, and Isaac is here. I'm sure that he will be the best person to tell us how we arrived from 120 when Mahama was leaving office, and currently looking at 742 billion. And yet people are crying out for what? Basic access to infrastructure, health. We still have schools under trees. We still have children who write on their stomachs. We still have persons who cannot even find money to buy basic medications. And while SNIT is working hard to get rid of all of our investments, remember that tertiary students are paying huge sums of money for accommodation even on the campuses of public universities. So imagine what is happening in the private universities, for example. Secondly, students worry a lot. What is it about? Transportation. Look at the cost of fuel currently. It dovetails into everything that we do. Ghana is currently experiencing what? The highest food inflation ever. So if we're in the Upper East region, you know that if people have challenges and accessing funds, there's also a challenge also with food, and cost of food will certainly be higher. And if you look at the condition of the road, it is obvious that AGYAPADE did not focus on roads in the Upper East region. So when we drove between the Upper West and Upper East, I told myself, wow, so this is the condition of the roads leading up to here. So certainly everything that actually was working in the interest of Ghanaians somehow is actually working backwards. And the same people who went out there to elect them. And look, there is also something we forget to mention. When you are elected as president, you become president for the whole of Ghana, not just for a few people. And so when you look also at the recent issues to do with abandoned road projects, for example, and Mr. Mahama spoke at length to this matter when he was in Tamale at the campaign launch about the Eastern Corridor Road that was abandoned by this government. How much did they expend? I'm sure Isaac will inform us about the money that was expended to audit the Eastern Corridor Road. And remember that that road was actually going to open up these parts of Ghana and open them up for business, improve movement, make cost of travel cheaper, access to markets for farm products cheaper, and was actually part of a long logistical value chain that was going to profit not just everybody, but profit each and every one of us. So yes, we have a very huge challenge. The country is literally bankrupt. Most of our youth are unemployed. And these days, when you go to tertiary institutions, our training institutions, you've heard even about the gimmicks that government is going to recruit 15,000 nurses. I know nurses who have been at home since 2020 and have not received posting anywhere, have not received any allowances. And ever since this campaign started, you can hear them. Today we are going to release funds to pay A, B, or C. Tomorrow we are going to recruit this number of people. Please tell me, in a country that is currently mopped in debt, how exactly does our government intend?
Now, so let me come to you, Isaac. While she's speaking to all these issues, there's one thing that has been on the minds of Ghanaians that John Mahama has always been speaking to, an assurance that the votes of the electorate will be protected. As Parliament, you have an oversight responsibility. Just recently, the EC appeared before you and you had engagement. There's always been that suspicion. How well are NDC MPs positioned to ensure that the EC meets the expectations of every Ghanaian?
Well, we know that the election is won not just because the people vote for you, but it is that you can make their vote count. We have a challenge because people keep asking this question, and it is not a good strategy to put out what you intend to do. Otherwise, then you tell the thief how you catch him when he steals. So, because of that, we are unable to specifically speak to our base in terms of the details. But when His Excellency assures them that their votes will count and will protect the votes, and that we are not going back to the court, he means exactly what he says. And it is because he has a team that is working around making sure that those loopholes are protected. In the last election, the CI that was brought created a structure that was alien to our electoral system. Hitherto, we were compiling election results from constituencies. Then they moved to the regional coalition centers, which was alien to us. And I think that a lot of funny things happened at the regional coalition centers. So we know where the problem is and we know what to do. So I can only assure you that when His Excellency says that he will protect your votes, trust him.
I'll come to the two of you to make your concluding remarks very shortly, but I have a couple of text messages I want to read. This one says, Eric, good morning. Senior Counsel Joyce Bawa Muktari, I'm so impressed by your submission. This one says, Eric, what has been happening in Ghana for the past 7.5 years is not something to write home about. Ghanaians are really suffering. We cannot afford to hand over an additional 4 years to the inept NPP and by far clueless and vindictive Akufo-Addo government and its cronies. Change is what Ghana needs. Change is what Ghana needs, and we are going to protect our ballots with our lives. Rashid Network says, Wezo is the best station in Ghana. Please, John and Jane are the perfect pair for Ghana. We the disappointed NAPCO trainees cannot wait for the 24-hour economy, the game changer. And please extend my greetings to my mentor and role model in life, Madam Joyce Bawa Muktari. This is from Prince Nash in Tamale. This text message says there's a lot of hardship in Ghana. Food prices have become unbearable. Transportation fares are increasing day in and day out. We are becoming poorer and poorer. The only hope is the iconic John Dramani Mahama. And this one is from Charles Cardinal Pokwase in Accra. And this program is live on TV XYZ. And of course, Wezo TV be following John Mahama wherever he goes. And you are assured that you have some live feed in your homes, on your social media handles, and of course you can follow the conversations, understand the policy issues. Now, Joyce, let me come to you. Now, if you had the opportunity to speak to people who are still in doubt, most especially because this campaign is not of insult but on issues, what would you tell young men and women who see you as a role model?
Well, first and foremost, everybody who has ever interacted with me knows that I don't do things that I don't believe in. They also know that I don't actually lend any credence to persons who I know to be people you cannot trust. Let me say one thing that I know for sure about John Mahama and Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. They are a pair of experienced hands. Their whole lives have been led in the full glare of the public, and we have never heard that they've ever had any challenges to do with credibility, of trustworthiness, or that the fact that their families are raised on a model that they themselves will want to see for everybody else. John Mahama is a father, he's a husband, he's a grandfather. All his children are very, very engaged citizens, and we've seen how his sons in particular have contributed even to this campaign as we've gone along. We've also seen Nana Jane and her children, same. Nana Jane's son has always been part of our communications team and actually works very, very hard in terms of research, etc. These are individuals who have managed their homes effectively and beautifully, and I'm sure that if we hand Ghana to them, they will do pretty much the same. I myself consider myself an ambassador for all the voiceless and for persons who are needy. I believe strongly that this pair is a pair that will come and work, even if we don't completely reduce all the hardship, but at least there will be hope and things will be better. And I know for a fact that, look, we are in the Upper East region, one of Ghana's poorest regions. Look at the hope that their leaders actually give to them. Look at the inspiration that they are. Look at the contributions of their leaders in parliament to the work of government, to the work of the NDC. I have no doubt in my mind that if you want a pair that you can trust, then trust John and Jane. Trust them for a better future. Trust them for even more hope. Trust that they will not go out there and borrow 742 billion and have absolutely nothing to show. I keep coming back to Kwalogo because it actually is something that actually is on my chest. That if that amount of money were translated into Ghana cedis and given to each household here in the Upper East region, I'm sure it will put to much better use. They'll put it to the farms, put it to water generation, put it to more business, and work very hard so that young people can also find opportunities for themselves, not just a few. Look,
I've heard a lot of
we
women.
have never been people who come into government to serve the person. For all the stories and falsifications that were made against John Mahama, how many of them have you seen that anybody can substantiate? In terms of Nana, her credibility is unparalleled. And if there's anybody who understands what young people need in terms of education and our prospects for same, that must be Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. If there's any gentleman who understands Ghana and what we need at this time when we are bankrupt and need genuine modesty, a leader who will not take your money to fly in private jets and leave you to hunger, a leader who is not so selfish and insensitive as to come in the morning and offer you AGYAPADE3 and give everything that is available to his family and leave the rest of us to suffer. A leader whose children will not take everything because they believe that their father is president and leave everybody else to suffer. We want leaders who can empathize, who are compassionate. I think one of the most lasting things about John Mahama's character is his sense of selflessness. He is a man you can trust. And all of us here will make sure that we deliver on what we are promised.
I intend asking him this question one day. I've seen tapes of people, prominent Ghanaians, who made false accusations against him. And these tapes have been compiled to reflect the series of apologies that they have rendered openly, including media practitioners. Does he bother? Does he feel vindicated? Or he takes it that God has spoken for him?
Let me very quickly say that, look, God still works in the affairs of men, and in all humility, admit that as someone who has served Mr. Mahama for close to 10 years, very closely, I am sure that somehow it makes him even more humble. You see, let's remember that leaders are also human beings. They are also sensitive to all the things that happen in and around them, the criticisms and all of the other things that we hear, especially when they are fabrications, and very, very, very bad fabrications, extreme propaganda that seeks to damage. Sometimes, look, if you are not emotionally strong, these things can even completely destroy your life. So for us to live through 8 years of this dishonestly, morbidly corrupt Akufo-Addo administration, and to have conversations today that even seek to vindicate and validate what John Mahama was doing before he left office, I think that it gives us a certain modicum of comfort that the good people of Ghana themselves now have a great way to make up their minds and make a choice. A choice between a leader who cares, a leader who will go the extra mile, a leader you can trust, a leader who is not going to come and say winner takes it all and everything is for myself and my family. In any case, what is it that we are all looking for? Food to cure hunger, jobs that we can get to sustain ourselves and our families. We want hope. a leader who will not go and borrow unnecessarily. Do you remember that years ago, Mr. Mahama had cautioned in the course of the pandemic that the borrowing was becoming too much and would probably be one of our biggest challenges in the next few years? What did they tell us? Today we are there. Pension bond holders are struggling to get their investments back. We've seen the Chief Justice of Ghana, former Chief Justice, a distinguished legal practitioner, who has spoken out about how insensitive this government is. Need I say more? A vote for John Mahama and Nana Jane is a vote to reset Ghana's economy.
So let me bring the reset part to you, Isaac Adongo. Even before we go to how John Mahama, from where you sit, can transform the economy based on the assurances he's given, you can walk us through some blueprints that may be on your mind. But this Pualugu Dam thing, are people of Upper East angry, especially when the Public Accounts Committee revealed so much gone waste with the bare land following?
Yes, I think the people are very angry, but our people sometimes they grieve in silence. They know the moment will come when they will have their say, and that will be on the 7th of December 2024. So the fact that you are not hearing them shout over the roof every day does not suggest that they do not know the injustice that has occasioned this activity. Let me tell you that when His Excellency was leaving office, we had a master plan for the Savannah area, and that master plan included the Kwalugu Dam. We had secured almost, I think, $600 million from the World Bank as part of our framework agreement with the World Bank. The Korean government had offered to give us $300 million. In fact, the total package that we had secured was $1 billion to really develop the Kwalugu Dam. So it's not as if we left without funding. We had arranged the funding. Unfortunately, when they came to do the dam, what they brought to Parliament was not a loan agreement. In other words, they came to tell the people they were going to develop the biggest dam, costing $1 billion, without any idea how they were going to fund it. Meanwhile, the monies that we secured had been used for other things. I remember part of that was used for planting for food and jobs, including the reallocation of the Ghana Commercial Agriculture Fund that was supposed to go into this via dam was used for planting for food and jobs. Then they brought a commercial agreement, which is that the contractor's agreement with the contractor. But how the contractor was going to be paid, which should be a financing agreement, did not come. So technically, they had given a contract to somebody without money. And I said, once they came without a funding source, I can tell you 100% that that project will not happen. And that's just what happened. They now started finding ways to siphon public funds in the name of the Kwalugu Dam. But we had a master plan, like I told you. We called it a multi-purpose dam for a reason. It was to be used for irrigation, but at the same time to solve the problem of the spillage from the Bagre Dam. But at the same time also help us to solve the same problem, generating electricity to feed the industrial enclave that we're expected to create within the northern sector.
When you hear people say that this economy has been run down and that John Mahama has a huge task in the next 4 years, how does it come across you?
I think His Excellency is in no doubt at all. His handlers and those of us who advise him on the economy have been very blunt with him that this job is going to be your biggest job, but you have the team around you to help you do the work. And as a leader and knowing who you are, during Dumso, old man will call people at 2 a.m. My colleagues who were in government will tell you that he never slept. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., he calls you to get a clarity on the issue. That is the type of leader we are going to have in His Excellency. And I do believe that the set of policies that were put together in our manifesto would advance the cause of Ghana coming out of this mess. And I've always said that if there's any group of people in Ghana, any political party in Ghana that has the experience of dealing with difficult economic situations, it is none other than
so all